Chat, we are here.
Hey, chat. Chat, we're waiting for Mike O'Connor, and then we'll wait for Mike Levin. But first, we're going to start with Mike O'Connor. But we were talking about hats and whether you like wearing a hat more if your head is shaved, if you have less hair, as opposed to more hair. CJ likes having more hair wearing a hat.
Yes.
Do you know what size you are in a fitted hat?
No, I haven't worn a fitted hat since like middle school. I've been an exclusive strap, or I'm looking now. Yeah, no, I don't own a fitted hat.
Got it.
But we were talking about it in the chat the other day over on the Twitch chat about the pros and cons of having a shaved head and wearing a hat. And I like having hair because it forms in the empty spots of the hat. Right, Mike?
What on earth could that be about?
We're talking about hats and how much hair you should have. Like, what's comfortable?
Like having a shaved head wearing a hat versus having hair on your head and wearing a hat.
Never had a shaved head, so I don't know. I've always wanted to be a hat guy. I never thought I could really pull it off. I don't.
You should
Oh no!
try it sometime.
Did you see MSC freeze in there?
A little bit.
I froze again.
I'm gonna see you with us.
You watching Netflix while you're streaming this, MSC?
No, I
Okay.
have my TV on. Hang on.
Okay.
Try and turn that off.
Sometimes I wear a mic, not this mic. The other mic is like when his stream is like glitchy. I'm like, do you have any other things up? He's like, no, not really. And all I can think is like he's got Ozark on in the background on his computer.
I loved in the chat the other day after. So there was the one pod I was gone for work, and then the pod after that was when StreamYard fucked up at the end. And then when StreamYard messed up at the end,
When StreamYard messed up.
everyone in the chat was like, "Oh, CJ's internet again," as if it was like an existing thing from when I wasn't there the first time. I have great internet here in Philadelphia.
See, Guy says I wear a hat, but I look way better without one. The problem that I think I have pretty good hair, but the problem on the show is that I don't know if it's the angle I sit. It makes it look like I'm balding. I'm definitely not balding. Like I've had the same hairline for 20 years. I'm definitely not balding. So thank you, Guy. We'll start. Mike will the other Mike will jump in while we're going because he's catching up. You good with that, MOC, CJ, everyone?
I'm with that. I'm just a little worried about my internet because I'm like, but
Oh, you're glitchy again. Do you want to, before we actually start, do you want to close the window and start again or something?
sure.
Yeah.
I feel like you're in a unique category of
Internet?
men that have good hair but prefer hats.
I
feel
don't
like-
well, I don't wear a hat every day. Like I never wear a hat. Like I only wear a hat during the pod. Sometimes I wear that on the weekend if I decide not to do something with my hair. But I have like pretty like I have a good head of hair. It just I feel like it looks weird on the screen.
So for the pod,
Yeah.
everyone sees you, and most of the time that I'm seeing you, you're always wearing a hat.
Right.
So you are a hat guy
To you.
to us and
Yeah.
the listeners and watchers. So you would think that like wearing a hat wouldn't be deterring like away from your
My
lack
normal.
of hair.
Yeah. No. All right, let's try this again.
Let's do it. If I
Right,
glitch
so-
out, you can just kick me off or
Yeah,
sub me
I'll
off for
just talk
somebody.
myself. I'll talk myself. Well, we're getting into the time in the series where it gets a little hard to talk about it, so I do need another person. Sometimes I feel like I could just go on and on. But so here we go. The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook by using promo code RTRS and brought to you by MorgageCS. Become a MorgageCS Ricky VIP by going to mortgagecs.com/Ricky. LL Pavorsky Jewelers, where Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners go and get engaged. And Kinetic Skateboarding, get 9.1% off your first order with promo code Dave Silver. On today's show, the Sixers go down 2-0 in a sort of a perplexing, I don't know how to feel after the first two games that I will ask MOC about. Also, Charles Barkley goes in on DeAndre Jordan on who else's podcast? Yes, Danny Green's. And a guy we've never heard of says Joel Embiid is the MVP. Kinetic skateboarding, I mentioned. Boy, I love kinetic skateboarding. what did I see on their Instagram today? Hold on. These brand new, the Nike SB Blazer Mid ISO. Now it's leather, so I wouldn't wear it, but it's white leather and light cognac, available now in store and phone order only. So go to their Instagram, Kinetic Skateboarding on Instagram. I bet if you call, they'll ship it to you. Well, I just said that anyway. If you order stuff online, tons of shoes, tons of hoodies, tons of shorts, great spring gear. Spring is hoodie weather. So go to kineticskateboarding.com and use promo code DaveSilver for 9.1% off your first order without any without any further ado. Amos and the chef.
Larry, sweetie, the man is here.
Say the name, I say the name, I say the name.
We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We was right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We were right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. Say the name.
Welcome to the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. I'm Spike Eskin, along with not the Mike from Rights to Ricky Sanchez, but the other Mike from Rights to Ricky Sanchez, MOC. What up, man? Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, you bet, man. It was just a privilege to watch Danny Green operate tonight. Just bearing witness.
Mike, other Mike catching up. The Mike catching up. I think my guess is we'll have him shortly, but we wanted to start right after the game, and of course, who else but no better choice than MOC. Oh, is he there? Oh no, CJ's bringing something up on the screen. So, Mike, here's the weird thing I can't figure out about these two games. My eyes and my gut as I'm watching, and it seems like a lot of people, as I look at Twitter, seem to say the same thing. And you actually said this before the series. I'm watching it, I'm thinking, man, Miami seems so beatable. Like, it seems like we're close. But then I look at the end of these games, and they're really not close at all. The first game, the Heat could have won by 25 points if they felt like it. This game settled in around that 15 mark, and a couple of times it got down to 7 or 8. And I just can't tell if it's the way that they play that doesn't seem like they're that much better, or if they are that much better and they're just, or if they're just not that much better. Like, what am I sensing in there that the results don't necessarily add up with what I feel when I'm watching it?
Well, you're right that they're very surgical and like precise, and it never feels overwhelming in any moment. It just feels like calculated all the time. They just beat you very slowly. But there's also a dynamic where they're just not that impressive. Like, they just don't have the type of gear. Like, when I watch the Celtics beat the Nets, something just feels like so overwhelming and smothering about them. And then you watch that game 1 of Bucks Celtics, and like the Bucks just like, you just can't stop Giannis. And I don't know. I just feel like if you're a championship team, like, you have that gear, and like the Heat kind of don't have it. So yeah, it's just like they're not at that level. I mean, I think that even with Embiid, they would have had a very good chance of winning this series, but I don't know. I just don't like fear them on the level that I would fear the Celtics or the Bucks or, teams out west.
So teams, when they go down 2-0, lose 93% of the time in the history of the NBA playoffs. So the Sixers, to win this, even if Embiid were to come back in game 3, are going to have to win 4 out of the next 5 games, which, by the way, to anyone who's watching live, Mike will be here in 2 minutes, which is great. They're going to have to win 4 out of 5, which and there's still not even a guarantee that Embiid plays on Friday. Let's say Embiid does play on Friday. You think there's a realistic chance the Sixers pull the series off?
I don't. Because
Yeah.
you're not going to get Embiid. You're going to get Embiid with a mask and a torn thumb, and who's coming off a concussion, lost his rhythm. Like Chris Haynes had that thing on the broadcast where he said Embiid just started being able to look at his phone yesterday. You're
Yeah.
telling me he's going to play in a playoff game in 2 days?
Yeah.
Like I don't know, man. Concussions are no joke. I feel like that's like been swept under the rug. Like, yes, he's going to have a mask. Yes, he has the thumb thing. He's also was just concussed. Like that's not nothing. It's not like he's been in the gym or running or watching film and stuff. Like it's a real thing. And I just don't, even if they get 75% of Embiid, that's not enough, man. And we can talk about like kind of what that all means for the bigger picture, but like this is just not a team that has that like cohesiveness and toughness and all of those types of things you would need to kind of survive not having Embiid or not having the full Embiid, injured Embiid, that type of thing.
It's such a bummer for the season to end this way. If this is how it ends, if this is how it ends, and the series goes 5 or 6 maybe if Embiid ends up playing there, and you end up losing with just a beat to shreds Embiid to a Miami team who is the number 1 seed and good, but it doesn't feel like you really lost to a championship contender. I don't know. It's just like I want one of these seasons to end in just a normal fucking way. Like I don't even know what we learned out of this season other than we don't have very much confidence in Harden, and Tyrese Maxey has gotten a lot better. And it's going to be a wild offseason as it always is, but like it's just such a bummer for it to end this particular way to this particular team.
Before the Embiid news came out, I was in the midst of working on a piece about how we're going to find out who this team is in this series. Like we're going to learn, like, are they the team from games 1, 2, and 6 against Toronto, or are they the team from games 3, 4, and 5 against Toronto? And we're just never going to know. We're never going to know. Like, we're not going to have an answer as to what this team could have been. My gut is to probably say that they just didn't have enough supporting cast and like they didn't have enough cohesiveness to win a championship. But I don't know, man. It's tough. Like I think they would have won this series with a healthy Embiid. I really do. I don't think they would have beaten the Bucks, especially if Middleton comes back, or even the Celtics. But man, we're just not going to know. We're not going to know, and they have a lot of clear things to address in the offseason. And who knows? Maybe they make an interesting series out of this. We're talking like it's over, but it's not. But yeah, man, we probably aren't going to know if this team could have done anything serious, and that sucks. It sucks not knowing that.
It does suck when the other team, like Embiid, obviously the most important thing here, obviously. And it does seem like every team that the Sixers play has, I've mentioned this on another pod, has like 9 players that the Sixers could use and that could play on any team. But I think one telling thing about the roster, as Mike joins us, there he is. One telling thing about the roster. Hi, Mike. No.
Hello.
Yeah,
Sorry,
Hi, Mike.
there he is.
Autoplay
I think-
video happening.
One
Catch
telling,
me up. Start from the beginning.
I was asking, I wonder if you feel this way. I was asking MOC. I have this weird thing when I'm watching this series that, but at the same time, it seems like I sit there feeling Heat aren't that good. The Sixers aren't that far away. But at the end of the game, the Sixers are losing by almost 20, and they didn't really have any sort of chance in the second half of either game. And I can't quite place what that means about the Heat and what it means about the Sixers and what it means about the rest of the series. Like whether the Heat are good and I'm watching it, I'm biased, or whether they're not. I can't quite figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that the Heat are that good. I think that they are solid, reasonably solid. They're certainly better than the Sixers in every aspect of the game without Embiid, but that's not saying much. The Sixers team wouldn't make the playoffs if this was what they were. But yeah, I don't look at Miami and go like, oh, they're having such a tough time. I think Jimmy hasn't played well, and part of it is because I think he's not feeling like challenged. Maybe I do think Tobias is doing a good job on him, but like for the
Jimmy's
most part,
going half speed.
I think so.
It feels
he
like,
might be injured also, but yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Bam is doing a lot of their offense, and it's mostly because like there's nobody on the team that can really stop him. But also, that's not what their offense should be, and they're hitting a ton of tough looks. Like for a team they're not generating nearly as many easy looks as they should against a team that without Embiid is as bad on defense as the Sixers. I don't think they're that good. I really don't. But you know, the Sixers defense isn't good without Embiid, and neither is their offense, and they basically have to play a perfect game to beat this team, and they were 8 of 30 from 3.
That's not
again.
perfect. Yeah.
And Miami was 14 of 29. And so it's just like, I give credit to the Sixers for battling, like 100%. Like they battled, but they just missed too many open looks. And it's like, what are you going to do? You're not going to win those games when you're at that much of a talent deficit and you're missing open shots.
I think the most telling thing to me, which is what I was getting to right before you signed on, is that the Heat are not even playing Duncan Robinson, and they need an extra guy with Lowry hurt, and they're bringing Victor Oladipo off the bench. And meanwhile, we are like, maybe Furk can get hot. You know, like they're not even
did, which is funny.
Yeah. Like they're not even playing. Like they replaced Duncan Robinson with like, they're like, oh, what if we had Duncan Robinson but could play defense, like in Strus or whatever. And Oladipo's not what he was, but he's still like a pretty effective player. And we're fucking around with Furk and Shake, and it's just like, at least from a depth perspective and an athlete perspective, it's not really very close.
And can I just say, not to dig into the post-mortem too soon, but like I sort of made us think about this. I remember doing a podcast with Mike. It was just the two of us late last summer. And I was talking about how like I thought Daryl blew the offseason. They didn't add anything of value long-term, and they didn't replace the stuff that they lost with Simmons. And we knew at that point Simmons wasn't coming back. They didn't replace any of his defense, any of his rebounding. Like there is no physicality on the wing on this team. And like,
none.
I don't know if like signing Justin Holiday would have fixed it, but like they just have no guys like you're referring to, like Strus and Oladipo, who just come in and they can do a little bit of everything, and they're physical and they know where to be and they hit shots. Like they didn't add anything like that in the offseason. And I don't know. I felt like I got pushback from people like, no, we were playing along with Simmons, so figure it out. Like they didn't do anything. They didn't add anything. They added Andre Drummond and George Niang. Like what? Like they added nothing. And that's why we're here. It's not that he couldn't cobble together a deal for those types of guys on deadline day. It's because last offseason they didn't add anybody.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Sixers just like they're not nearly as deep as they should be. They don't have all season long before the Harden trade. Part of it was Simmons, but like they're so like the athleticism and physicality on the wing defensively was supposed to be Simmons. And this team still has like that huge hole in them because they don't have anybody that's tough or physical or like fast or athletic. Like it's just like Matisse is like pretty long and kind of athletic, but he has stone hands, and like even when he does get to a ball or like deflect a ball in defense, like he isn't like grabbing the fucking thing, and everybody else is slow or weak or soft or even slower. And it's just like, what the fuck? There's really like, they're hopeless like a lot of the time. And I thought like, you know, this was certainly, I don't know if we talked about it, this is certainly a better DeAndre Jordan game. It couldn't have been worse, but it was absolutely better. But even still, like he has no fucking chance in the pick and roll, not against anyone. Eric Spoelstra and Pat Riley could run a pick and roll, and DeAndre Jordan wouldn't have a chance on them. Like there's just not. He is alone out there. He may as well like give him a raft and like a bubble bath, and he's just like let him just swim along in there. Like he's got nothing going whatsoever there, and so they can get easy looks every fucking time they want. And when the Sixers don't have enough guys that can stop perimeter penetration, like he's hopeless. It's hopeless.
I want to offer a defense of Morey right after MorgageCS. I think our newest sponsor, MorgageCS, Briggs Auction or MorgageCS. MorgageCS if you're going to get a mortgage, and you may have seen mortgage rates up a little bit as interest rates go up, definitely want somebody in your corner who you can trust. You don't know what the fuck you're doing with a mortgage. So MorgageCS stands for Mortgage Concierge Service. They are a mortgage broker, not a lender. They're not the ones giving you the money. They're the ones finding the mortgage for you. They are small, they are local, and they're fucking good at it. And they want to do two things for you if you go to MorgageCS. If you've never gotten a mortgage before, I'm telling you, this is where you want to go. Or if you picked a house and you're applying for a mortgage right now, go to MorgageCS for a second opinion. But they want to do two things. They want to get you the best rate, but they also want you to walk away knowing more about the entire process and what is actually happening, how the rate is not always the rate, and that they are there for you whenever you need them. 8 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock in the morning, on the weekends, you see a house, you need a pre-qualification letter, they're there for you. You can call or text their CEO, Ben, at any time. 267-391-7425. If you're watching live, I want you to text him right now. Just, hey, I'm a Ricky listener, I'm watching live. 267-391-7425. You'll learn what an APR is. You'll learn why some mortgage brokers are not as honest as MorgageCS is, who, by the way, is not taking your information, selling it to anyone. Go to morgagecs.com/Ricky, morgagecs.com/Ricky. See the amazing site that they built for us. If you're buying a new home, if you're doing some debt consolidation, it's about having a partner, and MorgageCS is your partner. morgagecs.com/Ricky. Text their CEO, Ben, or call him 267-391-7425. Once again, that is morgagecs.com/Ricky. Here's my defense of Morey, and I'm ready to, I will not, this isn't just like a fanboy defending everything he does. If he gives Harden that contract, I'm going to crush him. I think the scoffing at the backup center thing was terrible. But, and Hinkie said this when he was on with Pablo Torre, about how long it was going to take to fix what was wrong here. He walked into, I think, a really fucked up situation. The first year, he gets rid of Josh Richardson, he gets rid of Horford. And then he walks into this Ben Simmons thing. And I just think with the very little cap space they had, with the inability to really spend any picks on anything because you didn't know what was going to happen with Ben or what that deal was going to be, I just think his hands were really tied going into this year. I really do. And you can point out all these other players that you would rather have than this. Like, I'd rather have PJ Tucker than George Niang, like all this stuff. But like, what does he have to trade, right? Like, even to make the Harden trade work, and let's say it wasn't Harden, let's say it was Beal, they're still not winning the fucking title with Beal this year. You're still spending Ben and picks to get him, Like, I don't know. I don't think there were a lot of moves to be made.
The point, though, is that the best GMs, the best teams find something out of nothing. Like we are talking about with the Heat, they found Oladipo from nowhere. They found Max Strus from nowhere. All of these, Duncan Robinson, obviously, they weren't going to get any of those guys last offseason, but
this is years. This is over years. This is not in one offseason.
Sure, but it hasn't even started. This is not even, process haven't even started yet. I mean, like Paul Reed, I guess, is the best thing you could point to. Like, that's about it.
And some of that is on Doc. For sure. Like, I think that the inability to like experiment, look at what happened last playoffs, of how this team folded without Embiid on the court, and obviously the Simmons situation dominated everything. But you got to go into the season knowing, okay, we have a guy that's not playing at all. We're not going anywhere with him unless they trade until they trade him for someone valuable. So we may as well use this season to find what guys can do and experiment and stuff. And especially experiment with the backup center position. And they just fucking didn't, man. They didn't. They never did. They never, ever, ever, ever did. He refused to do it. And now we're in the same exact fucking situation that we've been in for years. I mean, obviously it's the Embiid injury, and it wouldn't have mattered in this instance. They're playing at least even if I don't think they're as good as the number 1 seed should be, like they're still playing a solid Miami team. But like to go into the playoffs and not have not know who you are when Embiid's off the court even a little bit is just on the coaching staff. It's really frustrating that like we've been here this whole time and we're saying like have an option, have like a second option, and instead it's like we're living with Paul Reed's mistakes because he's extremely raw, because he hasn't played much NBA basketball, because he hasn't played with these teammates that much, or corpses walking around there as formerly good players.
Yeah. Part of it, like with the Doc thing, is also just like an identity thing. Team doesn't have an identity. They have no cohesiveness. Like they're not like on a string defensively at all. Everybody last series was talking about like, oh, Nick Nurse is out coaching Doc Rivers, but like, I guess so, but like not in like a chess match sense. It's that he gets his guys to show up and play hard every night and be connected and communicate. And Doc hasn't done that. And part of it is just personnel. You're not going to be that when you have James Harden all
it goes
those
hand
guys.
in hand.
But
they're the personnel. Morey and Daryl and Doc both did a bad job this year, and in some ways they did good jobs. In some way, like Daryl got Harden for very little. That's the guy he wanted, and he waited for him, and he got him. And in some way, and Doc made this team for the most part, and as well as Embiid and Maxi's drastic improvement, made this team a top 4 seed in the East, despite all the wild shit that was going on all season. So like in some ways, those are successes, but in other ways, like in the ways that matter of like, are you going to compete or not compete? Like Daryl didn't get them there, and Doc didn't get them there, and they still have very good players. They just don't have enough of them, and they're not maximized in the way that they could be.
Harden proved for the second game in a row that he doesn't. He has what he has. I think.
Yeah.
He looked good a couple of times early in the game. He did seem to disappear in the second half. I think Miami, as we talked about in the first game, made it a point to just make him work hard and take out whatever energy he has. And obviously we know Harden is in impeccable condition to compete for the full extent of the game. And we got the normal Maxi game where he explodes for 6 to 7 minutes. He really I have no doubt that he will. He does need he is a very interesting half court player in that he's not really sort of a creator guy. He's not a give him the ball and have him get you a bucket guy. He doesn't have a collection of moves at this point. And I'm interested to see what happens after this year, and with another offseason. It's just it's a weird game to talk about because everybody was exactly as they are. George Niang is really, really gunning for one of the worst playoff series of all time. He's got... And
yet, back-to-back games, he's the only player with positive point differential.
Oh, he was positive in this game?
Again, +3. I mean, it's he played 10 minutes and fouled out, but
how do you foul out in 10 minutes?
The value of there is value in just have the threat of a shot, even if he's not out there. And he finally hit one, which was nice, and immediately talked shit to Dwayne Wade per the broadcast. With Harden, this is who he is at this point. Well, I wonder if a come to Jesus type offseason does anything for him. I'm not going to bank on it, but who knows? This is his last stretch of getting a big contract. Blah blah blah. He did get tired again for sure, 100% in the second half, and that was not just an unwillingness to drive. It was kind of not going after a long rebound here and there and just being well, whatever. But they're still doubling him. Maybe it's because they don't think that the Sixers can beat them in any other way, but they're still doubling him, and that is power. That is helpful to a team. And I don't think he made him pay enough. He didn't dissect a couple plays early of finding a rolling big. He's so good at finding a rolling big. But they diagnosed it a little bit, and then he didn't really do much else after that. But 20 points on 15 shots, 9 assists. He was good. He was a good player, but he's far from one of the 10, 15, 20 best players in the league at this point. And that's without Embiid. That's what they really need him to be. If Embiid was here, and you had Maxey playing at this level, and Harden could just be this guy, then great. Then we're in great shape. Give him like one or two, like this exact team with Embiid and like two more guys that can defend a little and shoot a little instead of Matisse or Korkmaz or Shake or Niang or one of the or an old and now ineffective Danny. Like two more guys that could just like do a little, and this team's a championship team. Embiid's that good. And Maxey is great, and Harden is a really, really great still distributor and floor general. But to MOC's point, they just didn't get those guys, and Embiid's hurt, and you need Harden to be more, and right now he's not.
I keep saying it, and it sounds like I'm making an excuse, but it's not. Like Harden's a number 2. That's what he is. Mm-hmm. I think he's a perfectly good enough number 2 on a championship team. Some people might disagree. I think that's fair. I think it's borderline.
You think he's as good as? I mean,
he's as good as Chris Middleton was last year. Yeah.
You think?
I think so. Yeah.
They're such different players. I mean,
yeah,
like effectiveness. I don't think like it's because he can get to the line. It's because he can pass. Like, is he going one-on-one and getting like great looks and just being like, man, you can't stop him? Like, no, he's not that. But like, when you look at the end of a game and see like he did this, he got this guy open, they're still doubling him all, like when it nets out in a way that he's still like a very positive player. And I agree, like a good number 2 at this stage in his career.
Can I offer and this will sound takier than I mean for it to be, but like I think that means then that they don't have a number 1. Like, because Embiid is a great player and he can be the best player, but they still do. Like here we are after all this, they make the trade. They still don't have a primary wing scorer.
No, he's still the primary distributor and ball handler, and Maxey can still like beat anybody off the dribble and turn the corner, which he did a lot tonight. And Tobias has looked like pretty great, like more confident, like getting to his spots, shooting with like an ability of like I'm not going to overthink it, like. If this is the Tobias that he'll always be, which I don't know, then we'll see. But I think it is the lack of Embiid is the biggest thing, obviously, and then there was just Daryl didn't like supply the bench, and then Doc didn't get anybody there.
I think I'm more optimistic across the board for the future than you guys are. Like I believe in Embiid. I think I said that last podcast that I was on, and I think he can do it with, a really good supporting cast. I think Harden's a capable number 2. Maxey's only going to get better. Tobias seems to have figured something out. And on the Harden thing, like, I do believe that his hamstring is playing a role, and I think that an offseason will help. I certainly don't think that he will look.
He already had an offseason, Mike. He already had one offseason with the same injury.
Right, but an offseason where he wasn't, like, training and stuff. He wasn't playing any 5-on-5 until the fall. At least that's what the Nets said. Maybe it wasn't true. I don't know. But like we saw the same thing happen with Chris Paul, where Chris Paul had the hamstring injury in 2018, whole offseason to recover, is not the same guy the next year, and then has another offseason and is back to being Chris Paul. I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen. Can happen. I mean, hamstring injuries are no joke. So I don't know. I feel like if they run it back basically the same roster and shore up the bench, they're a contender, and I think they could win 55 plus games next year with this roster.
Yeah. My biggest Harden concern. Just last thing. My biggest Harden concern is like, why is his handle worse?
Right.
Like why again? It seems like he's like it's there's a looseness and like I mean maybe that's like the burst made him get away with stuff, but like it just doesn't seem like his handle is right, and that shouldn't affect the hamstring. Maybe he can't like bend over as much as he used to. I don't know, or maybe he's just like playing with it more, but the ball seemed to not be on a string in a way that it at one point was.
Do you know what it seems like to me? And I think it's the same reason that he's not shooting as well, is because players are not afraid of him going by him, so he has less space to do everything. I just think like players are playing, we saw it toward the end of the season and now in the playoffs, nobody gives him any space at all. Everyone who's guarding him is right up on him. Even bigs are right up on him, and I think that's probably it. LL Pavorsky Jewelers is LL our other sponsor? Wait a minute, hold on. Yeah, LL Pavorsky Jewelers.
Great.
The original sponsor of the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast, the first one. He's been quiet on Twitter during these playoffs, during the Miami series at least. Very quiet in his shell. Perhaps he's getting people engagement rings. Over 260 Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners have gone to LL Pavorsky and LL Pavorsky Jewelers. Now, they are not the only people to go to LL. Dude's been in business over 30 years over at 707 Walnut. Just the kindest man you ever want to deal with, especially with jewelry, because believe it or not, you don't know what the fuck you're looking at. You go wrong jeweler, they could sell you a fake ring. But not LL. LL will never sell you a fake ring. Never going to pressure you. And don't worry about, I don't have $25,000. I don't have $10,000 for a ring. Whatever you have, whatever your budget is, LL is going to work with you, treat you like $1 million, give you a great price, give you great jewelry, and make you feel incredible about the experience. What a wonderful guy and a wonderful business he has. And we are proud to send our listeners there. 215-627-2252. If you want to make an appointment to look at engagement rings, you can email him, lee@llpavorsky.com, or tweet at him @llpavorsky. Always supports our charities, Providence Animal Center, and Coded by Kids. LL Pavorsky Jewelers.
We like LL. We're going to keep buying engagement rings from him, whether you like it or not.
So a quick thing about Embiid before I wanted to bring up the most recent Simmons thing is Embiid now, as you mentioned, MOC, Chris Haynes mentioned on the broadcast tonight that Joel said that he was texting with Joel, and Joel hadn't even been able to look at his phone until Wednesday because it bothered his eyes and his head, and that was what, we had heard that from Danny Green. Do we think... I know John Clark reported. John Clark said, sources tell me Embiid is progressing well and there's real hope for Friday night. Joel would be playing through pain and his orbital fracture and torn ligament in his thumb. No one can ever question his toughness. It's a little weird to me that John Clark is getting the scoop. It makes me think he's not going to play on Friday. Makes me think this is PR. I don't know. Do we think he's going to play on Friday?
I'd be shocked. Not because I know anything. Not because I'm discrediting John Clark. Just the nature of the injury. Like that would be crazy to me.
Here you go, discrediting John Clark again. Once again, MOC. Once again.
I think he's going to play. I think it's going to be scary and upsetting. But I think he's going to try. I think he's like, I got the whole fucking offseason, whatever. What? I mean, what is he going to get? Permanent brain damage? This is me talking as him. I think he's probably just going to fucking say, fuck you. I'm going out there. I'm tired of watching DeAndre Jordan just get absolutely destroyed in a pick and roll. Although DeAndre, look, that first stretch, he had a tip in at one point.
Mm-hmm.
He did rebound a little bit better. Look, I'm a
really making us eat shit.
I'm a fair reporter. Yeah, it's still -9 in 13 minutes, but it's better. Better is better. And B-Ball Paul was a -2 in 25 minutes. By the way, B-Ball Paul, 2 fouls. Look at him not foul. I think honestly it hurt him a little bit. I think he was so focused on not fouling that he didn't get to a couple things that I wish he would have. Because Doc is a loser and he's in his head about you can't foul, and it's dude, you can foul. You're allowed to foul. You're allowed to get 5 fouls in 18 minutes. You're a center and he shouldn't be playing major minutes anyway. You want him playing as hard as possible for those minutes. But I'm proud of him for proving that he can not just foul out every time. I just think Embiid is just going to do it. I think he takes ownership. I think he gives a fuck. I think he's I'm going to be in pain no matter what. So I may as well be in pain when I try to get our team a win. And we'll see.
So the final end to the story this year on Ben Simmons, the report came out, is that he is having back surgery to I don't have it in front of me, but I think it's the thing where they trim down your disc a little bit in the back to relieve pressure so you don't have it doesn't touch nerves and there's less pressure there in your back. But try to help me understand the timeline here. And they said he'll be out 3 to 4 months, but he'll definitely be back for training camp, which seems aggressive. How is he totally fine for game 4? And then when he opts out of game 4 for the back, the story comes out that he and Rich Paul went to the team and said, hey, my mental issues are causing my back problems. And then 3 days later, he's having back surgery. Is this the wildest fucking story in the history of sports? I mean, I feel numb to it. It's crazy. How is he having back surgery?
It is nuts. And like anybody who's like, he's just doing this to like commit to the bit. Like this would be like an incredible commitment to the bit. I will say I have heard like, isn't it true that like 75% of us are walking around with a herniated disc?
That is, it's more like 50, but yes, it really depends on how your body reacts to it, how close it is to nerves. Like there are a lot of disc herniations that nobody ever knows about.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's legit. I have no idea. I kind of out of cares on the Ben Simmons situation. I hope he finds peace and enlightenment and goes to the Amazon and takes ayahuasca and finds himself. That's what I hope for him.
That's 2 ayahuasca mentions in the last 4 months. I think Tony T mentioned ayahuasca.
Yeah, I'll ditto MOC, like who I at this point don't really give a shit, and I think he's just like clearly he's got some back issues, but I have no idea. It doesn't seem like you should be doing back surgery lightly. It doesn't seem like that's a decision to take on a whim.
It's a commitment to the bit.
Hell of a commitment. And, you know, as a comedian, I respect it for sure.
Is there anything else? This was just a fucking miserable game from the jump.
I do think that they battled, man. Like I give like some of these guys like a lot of credit. Like I give Tobias like a lot of credit. Like Jimmy is doing, I mean, I think you're right. Jimmy's half speed, but Jimmy's really, and I'm looking at his line right now. He's 22 and 12, I guess. But like, it seemed like he didn't make his presence felt for most of the game, especially when Tobias was on him. It seemed like when Korkmaz was on him, or whatever, he would like go for it. But like, I give a lot of credit to Tobias, man. Like he had that drive left and the pump fake that get Jimmy up, and then he finished with the layup. He drove baseline right past Jimmy for the dunk. He's battling the passing lanes. He had 4 steals. Like, good for Tobias, man. Like, a real, like, bright spot of the last month or so from a guy that was really in a dark place of what his role was. And I hope this is just who he decides to be for the rest of his time here.
Totally agree. I had 2 other thoughts. The Heat with this defense, both, like, they're playing a zone a lot, but when they play man, they're basically playing zone. They're like they're doing this like really like it's so funny. It's like if it's it's like what they were trying to get out of the game when they wrote the illegal defense rules in the 90s, where it's like basically playing halfway in between Harden at the top of the key and like Tobias when he's in the corner. Like they're basically zoning up. And like the Sixers have to do way more stuff to like combat that. They have to have Danny Green making the Danny Green cut along the baseline. They have to have pin downs coming from the big men. Like they have to have Paul Reed flashing in the middle so that like when the ball goes there, he can spray it out to the corner. They have to have flare screens going. Like they're just doing nothing against that stuff. Nothing. And it's amazing to me that like Doc isn't drawing up some more stuff, because that's like bordering on like a gimmick defense. Like that they are playing so far off of Tobias in the corner, and like basically the Sixers are just letting it happen. That's crazy to me. They have to do more against that stuff. If you had Joel, that would be really easy to beat because you're giving him so much space in the middle. Joe just flashes for like post-up position in the middle of the lane, and then something has to collapse. But there's definitely a lot of stuff in terms of the way the Heat are playing that like if you had Joel, it's just like automatic no. Like you just can't do that. So I don't know if Embiid comes back and looks like himself. We'll see some competitive games, but the other thing that we have to talk about Danny. Like,
yeah,
it's an amazing Danny game, and you knew it. You knew it from the jump. Did you guys see? I lost my shit when it was like 2 minutes into the game, and I forget who missed, but it was an offensive rebound that hit the back of the rim and came right back out. Danny comes running in from the wing, and like it's a loose ball, and there is like no one near him. Like he could just grab the ball and it's his, reset the possession. He just like punches it out of bounds. Like he runs into the loose ball with no one around him and just punches it out of bounds and tries to save it. Runs after, tries to save it, can't save it. I was like, that is the most Danny Green play I've ever seen. This was a masterpiece. A masterpiece.
Yeah, I mean, an horrendous Danny game. Like obviously he was 1 of 10 from 3, or 1 of 10 from the field, 1 of 9 from 3. Missed a wide open dunk off a beautiful Harden pass.
Oh, the dunk
dribbled
was...
again, fumbled it out of bounds. Got a steal at the end of the third quarter and then put up a 40-footer with 4 seconds left on the clock. Anytime he does anything well at any point in the season, just know he's going to try to do that exact thing and it's going to turn out horribly. So whether it's a scoop or any dribbling or the dunk in that case, like that's just do the layup. You can just drop it in. He's Danny. We are used to this. He is helpful. He gets his hands in there. I wish he just grabbed the fucking ball a little bit more and wasn't just doing like tapsies as much as he does. Matisse does the same thing. But he just fucking, and I love the pump fake and he can hit those shots, but he just fucking missed and he missed too much. And they're 6 of 34 and 8 of 30 in 2 games, 2 winnable games where Miami was not playing that well. And he's a big part of that, him and Niang, of just like not showing up, the jumper just disappearing. And that just fucking, that sucks. And Matisse sucks right now. Matisse is horrendous. He's biting on everything. He finally blocked Hero from behind at least one point, but like he's doing nothing on offense. And when he's open in the dunker spot, they're not even passing to him because they don't trust him to give him the ball. It's just
He's the most overrated player in process history.
I agree.
Matisse Thybulle.
He looks
He's not even
really,
that good
really
at
bad
defense.
right now. He looks really, really bad.
He
right now.
he is on both ends. He's like if Nerlens Noel was 6'5". That's what he is. And on offense, I'm like nothing changes. Like, dude, he cannot take one dribble. Like it's the same thing as Nerlens. Like, I don't want him touching the ball ever unless it's a dunk. And dude, he's the worst offensive player in the league. He's always been super overrated on defense. Always. Like he does not provide any of the like off ball help that you see from like Mikal Bridges or Draymond or even like Covington when he was here. Like
he hasn't. He does sometimes, but he hasn't lately.
I don't see it much. I think a lot of his steals and blocks are just him like taking crazy gambles. It's like he's not like cleaning up other people's mistakes. That's not what he does. I think he would be really valuable. Like in last year's defense, he'd be really valuable if the rest of your team defense is really good. But he's not a guy who's like going to make everyone better and clean up everyone's mistakes. Like I said, like Bridges or Draymond or Covington, not anymore. But when he was here in first team all defense, that type of guy. And he's not that. He's Nerlens Noel on both ends if he was 6'5".
Yeah. I emailed when Zach Lowe put him on his first team all defense. I emailed Zach to tell him how wrong he was. He doesn't watch enough. Like he can be spectacular, but he's not dependable at all. Yeah. And defense is about being dependable, I think.
I do think he needs to stay in front of guys more often, and I think he just like, trusts his ability to like chase down and recover, which he has, and he's probably the best at those recoveries at anybody on ball at anybody in the league. But like, you can also just decide not to let anybody by you. You can decide to be physical and like be solid, and he too often just like either dies on screens or lets a guy go by, so then he can like come flying from behind and all that stuff. And it's tough. Korkmaz was good once again, the 4th leading scorer on the team. 2 straight games where Korkmaz is the 4th leading scorer. That's impressive. And Doc went with him, and I was like, this is stupid. He went with him over Shake, who also has been bad. But like
the shot's back, which means the confidence
shot looks
is back.
pretty good. The confidence is back. He had a little behind the back into a lefty scoop. Yeah. The quick release is helpful, but like, God, he's such a 0 on defense. Like he immediately gives up an offensive rebound to Jimmy. Like he just has to be more tough. Like even like simple dribble handoff stuff, he's like, they're blowing it up because he's so weak, and like he just can't. He can't be like that against a team like this. And I do wonder, like, Niang's been bad shooting wise for sure, and he's not a good rebounder. He's never been a good rebounder, but like something about lineups with him out there and him having to, as the small ball 5, and him having to draw the center out, it's their best hope right now. on offense to like get good actions. And I do wonder if, like, as much as I love B-ball Paul, do you try to go more Niang if there's no Embiid? Because the offense could just use the burst and getting Bam away from the rim and all that stuff would be nice. And he has been, a small sample size, but it's like, that's a playoff series for you. But like, he's been positive both games in a game that they lost by like 15 both games. So I would at least, it's at least worth considering.
Don't you think the problem though is because that rebounding is so bad, like it almost defeats the will of the team? I think on like it's
maybe
when Miami gets 3 straight offensive rebounds, I feel like they've gotten 3 buckets in a row. You know what I mean?
For sure. And I don't disagree with that. And Miami got 8 offensive rebounds tonight. That wasn't the main issue. It felt like more.
Yeah.
For sure. And there were a couple times that Danny, MOC, you mentioned that Danny like just punting it out of bounds, but there's one time when Danny was there and Gabe Vincent was just nearby him and Danny like flailed at the ball and like just like grabbed with the left and it was like, oh, that's an open 3 out of it because he didn't just grab the fucking ball. Like there's a couple of those things that could get cleaned up if they were just like more committed and played tougher. But like B-ball Paul also gave up some offensive rebounds. Bam's a good player. He's just going to get those. He's stronger than B-ball Paul. And has better positioning. I thought B-ball was pretty fine tonight. Had a couple nice plays, but just like needs his main issue. Like he can switch on things. He can get a hand up. Things don't like die out there with him there because he's at least like his effort and length. But like if you're going to be a non-shooter on the offensive end, you really got to clean up the messes on the defensive boards. And Bam still got enough of him where I'm like, I don't know, maybe it's worth trying to play more Niang, even as bad as he's been, with just the idea of like, all right, we're just going to go 5 out and let Maxey drive, let Harden drive, whatever it is, and see if we can get some like back cuts or whatever. I don't know.
That's the other thing that I would say about the Harden stuff. I wrote this before the series, and I think that it's really become true, is like they have fallen into the trap of just letting Harden isolate. Yeah. And that's not what you're supposed to do against these guys. You can't just like have them go one-on-one against Oladipo. You have to have like let Paul Reed play center and just like set screens and slip and Harden throw his beautiful over the top passes and do that stuff.
Keep doing it.
Or have Niang play center and pick and pop. Like I know in those actions, Harden's going to get the ball at the right place every time. You can't just like be like, oh, let's pull Furkan up here to get Max Strus onto him. Like that's terrible offense. They've fallen into that trap of just letting Harden isolate against pretty good defenders, and it's not going to work.
Do you think that that's Doc, or do you think that that's Harden?
I mean, probably both. Yeah, but I'd put it more on Doc. I mean, in part because Doc's not playing the small lineups, and Niang fouled out, so I can't get too mad at him. But I'd say both, but mostly Doc.
Yeah, I don't feel I've never felt much confidence in the step back. I do think he turned the corner a couple times tonight, but I would much rather have every single time Harden draws 2 people, give up the ball, give it to Maxey, let him turn the corner. Maxey kicked ass tonight, man. He had 34 points on 22 shots against a great defense. That's incredible. Like I think he really needs to improve as a passer. There were a couple open guys that Maxey had that he just didn't look for, didn't find, and I hope that he will improve his vision in the offseason and going forward. But like as a scorer, as a like get downhill, in transition, he's leading the playoffs in transition points per game right now. It's crazy for a 6'2" guy. And I thought his off-ball defense was really good tonight. Maxey's like he triggered some easy transition looks, just like blowing up some ball screens here and there. He had to take a bunch of tough shots at the end of shot clock because like they have nothing else going. So I think he would, if he didn't have to do a lot of the bullshit end of clock, no offense things, his numbers would look even better. But he's just like, he gets downhill and he switches hands and he can attack the heart of the zone. Full speed finishes. I saw some deceleration on his drives, which was dope. He drew like drawing fouls and scoring through contact. Like he's really, really good. He's going to be awesome. And that his skill set allows me to feel like, all right, even though Harden's lost a step, the 2 of them combined are good enough as like a 2 and 3 option And with Embiid there and Embiid there cleaning up defense and a couple other guys that can stop perimeter penetration, like this team is close, even though Harden has absolutely lost a step. And I hope, like MOC, like there's a last gasp of an offseason that can make him like a little bit closer to that guy he was like even like earlier last season. But it's unlikely.
Well, I'll leave you with this. CJ mentions in the chat that Furkan Korkmaz also led the Sixers in rebounding tonight.
Ha! Great. 6 boards. Good for him.
Well, before we leave, I have to do the MorgageCS disclaimer.
Korkmaz was in the game at like in crunch time at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Like from out of the rotation to like, God, if Korkmaz can get hot, like we need it. We'll see. Like part of that is, I mean, it's tough. It's so easy to blame Doc, but man, this lineup, this roster is just not good enough. It isn't good enough, and that is
why don't Mike and I do some Jaden Springer while you read the MorgageCS thing, Spike?
Well, how would you want to do it at the same time?
Yeah,
look
sure.
Good fighting through a screen. I'll say that.
Look
damn good fighting through a screen.
Minute.
Physical.
Meaningful minute.
I don't know that we can all do it at the same time. I think there's an audio issue there, but you can try.
No, you got it.
That advertisement is not a commitment to lend or extend credit. MorgageCS is an equal housing opportunity mortgage broker and arranges loans with third-party providers and does not make any mortgage loan commitments or fund any mortgage loans. All loans are subject to credit approval. Certain restrictions may apply. The information is presented for informational purposes by Rates for Us, LLC, DBA MorgageCS, Company NMLS 1464766, licensed by the PA Department of Banking and New Jersey Department of Banking and Insurance. Visit mortgagecs.com for more information. Ben Stucker, NMLS ID number 168345. We will talk to you on Friday night. Thank you, MOC, for joining. By the way, Sixers -1 on DraftKings for Game 3,
which definitely feels like they think Embiid's coming back.
Embiid's going to play, yeah, because they opened up at +8.5 for Game 2.
And let's just say it, if Embiid comes back and they win Game 3, we're in business. Like we're deeply in business. It feels bad now, but if Embiid comes back and it's a lot to ask for a guy as injured as he is, but he's one of the best players in the NBA for a reason. So if they can do it and the shooting improves and at least he can be like somewhat of a decoy and they throw some doubles at him, blah, blah, blah. And at least his presence defense, like this can turn positive very quickly. Even with all the things we said tonight of how limited this team is in many other ways.
We'll talk to you Friday night. Are you down with TTP?
Yeah. Lick face.